Greetings, my name is Thomas Farley, and aloha and mahalo from Waikiki in Honolulu, where I am recording this on Saturday, September 9th, 2023. It is 5 p.m. for this segment. I wish you peace. I truly wish that you have peace in your life. Waikiki is a great place for surrealists, familiar objects and familiar objects in unfamiliar situations, as this surfboard rider seems to be surfing on hot lava. More on Waikiki later. Starting this off with a photograph. I call these copper roses at the new casino it's under construction in Beatty, Nevada. It's going to be a fully developed vision of steampunk, and I think I'll look up the name and put it in on the screen for you later. But this is photography. I'm in between the brush people and photographers, so I don't try to do this too often, but this made, and I don't have a picture of it, a nice work on fabric. Goldfield, Nevada, a balance of desires. I have my 4 main Goldfield business posters balancing on the back of her back. It started out as some sort of rice advertisement in one of the dozens of books from Japan and China that I pick up to use as clip arts. This was eventually about 40 inches tall by 18 inches wide. Astrid at Enigmata Esoterica has one of these prints. She quite likes it. This is the pleasures of going to the A&W in Tonopah, which is about 30 miles west of Goldfield, Nevada. Goldfield, Nevada is between Las Vegas and Reno, about the center. And this sort of thing, I think if I tried to ask to photograph her from the front, she would just automatically reject it, and it just seemed like an opportunity to do something colorful. Although I know it may have I'm not even going to try to. I'm tired. I'll look up that word later. Bardot Forever. This started out as a very small, low-res screen grab, probably in the late 1950s, of her holding a puppy. Bardot is a great welfare animal rights activist, and this was the thought balloons, as I'll call them. They were on a template. The background is mostly of a office building that I took a photograph of in February of 2022 when I was in San Diego, and then that was hyper saturated with color. I made this design into a jacket. I might show that later. My protest against ubiquitous, omnipresent TED Talks, which used to be a really nice look into the future with some really genius people, and now they're just book tours. There's a TED Talk for everything, silly, stupid, and it's just, they really devalued their brand. So I have this as talking about a new TED Talk to focus on the triumph of American barnyard discipline as compared to Soviet collectivization to achieve the same. And the rooster, foghorn, leghorn going after the barnyard dog in his usual fashion. The failure of Soviet collectivization to achieve the same. I don't have a foot fetish, but I do like high fashion and high fashion photography. Everything about fashion, even of course it has trends, but is focused on making something beautiful. Beautiful photography, beautiful products, beautiful shoes, beautiful clothes, and all of that on beautiful women in beautiful settings. You're just trying to make something pretty and wonderful with no apologies or explanations from some idiot art professor trying to tell you that something ugly is actually beautiful. Everyone knows what's beautiful, and you're not fooling anything, professor, with your nonsense. This is a poster that was done in the 1920s by a Mercedes-Benz automobile dealer who was trying to attract the very rich time traveler crowd. And as you know, they have a lot of options, a lot of choices. So he knew that he had the pyramids, which is a great draw, but needed something more. So the plan is and was to bring in Cindy Crawford from her days with MTV's House of Style. So she'll be signing autographs in the Market Square here in Cairo in July of 1927 to help promote the sale of Mercedes-Benz automobiles in the Kingdom of Egypt. I happened to miss the appearance, but I can talk to you about my relation with Cindy later. Here we have a Mao poster redone to celebrate His Holiness the Dalai Lama, whom Mao certainly would have had shot on sight. These political posters are very easy to rework because the composition, the artistry is so beautiful to begin with. I simply substituted His Holiness's picture for Mao's, took away Mao's picture, and then bled in the Tibetan flag into the background. The Chinese people support Tibet. That is accurate as far as the lettering and wording goes. Free Tibet. I gave away the digital rights to this to freetibet.org in the UK in case they want to use it for merch, and they were happy to get that. Sharon Artlip, the town mother of Goldfield, the Gemfield gem claims. Gemfield probably was a site. You'll see it on maps. It's an area to collect colored quartz, chalcedony. People endlessly discuss the differences between chalcedony and agate and jasper, and basically it's all colored quartz, SiO2. Jasper in a thin section will not have translucency. Agate will. Agate's generally marked by a wavy type of pattern. The colors reflect the geology of the area, what elements are present, and Sharon does a great job managing these claims. The rocks are $1 a pound. I can hear him now. This is from Life magazine. This is the son of Franklin Delano Roosevelt running for governor of California after World War II. And the crowd, this is a Life magazine article. This is a triple exposure. The Life magazine reporter thought that many people in the crowd thought they heard echoes of Roosevelt Sr. when Roosevelt Jr. was talking. Hence the title, I Can Hear Him Now. Unfortunately, maybe fortunately, he was defeated in a total landslide in that governor's race. walking in Ibiza but dreaming of Goldfield. That direction sign in the middle is from Silver Peak, which is in Esmeralda County, where Goldfield is. And so she's walking around. This is from some catalog. She's walking around in Ibiza, and dreaming of Goldfield. The direction sign is, as I said, from the center of Silver Peak, which is a mining town for lithium, as we say in Esmeralda County. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of lithium. No services really, and it's even less services in Silver Peak right now than Goldfield. But things are never quite the same over the history of the Great Basin. Kate Moss. One of many things I've done around her and about her. She seems to be, over the years, decades, one of the most durable models. I understand that she has a reputation for just showing up and never asking for any explanation from any photographer. She'll just pose however you want, never complains, never explains herself, just appears and disappears again. She doesn't have a hammer hold on copyright. On Etsy you can find all sorts of images of her for sale, apparently not going after any of those people for reproducing her work without permission. The 9 Lives of John Charles Fremont, the Explorer. My cat, he's actually a silver tabby, but I put him into a buff or brown color for this with a radial blur that makes it look like they're tree rings, and then I started his history, which you can read in when you see the real poster up front. But essentially he was born in Catalonia, possibly involved in the Great Tuna train robbery around 1917, because cats have 9 lives, so you have to do a lot of research. Much of this was covered up by other people trying to hide his past, but the real problem was the free catnip movement that he started in the 60s, and later he had to disappear most of his opposition in Argentina in the 80s. It's a long story. Reno poster. I've watched Reno downtown literally die away since when I was a young child. It was a pretty amazing main street, the biggest little city in the world, and it was a vibrant downtown with Harrah's and Harold's, and there's just homeless all over the place now. It's a wreck. It's a mess. El Dorado Casino, they have an off-duty sheriff officer at every elevator bank to keep the criminals out, and it's the car collection, Harrah's car collection, is long gone, but they do have the bowling Hall of Fame there. It's sad. No posers in authentic Goldfield, Nevada. Of course, if you look like any of these women in profile like that, I think that we would be happy to have you walking around town posing like that. And the background is filled in with what you may see later, the front of my old gallery, which is called the Stop, and the adjoining B&B rentals are called the Stop Inn. It used to be the Elite Trading Post when the Foutses took it over about 8 years ago, and then I made it into my gallery for a while and simply didn't get any real traffic at all, except for the people running out of gas or wanting to use the bathroom. So there's no need to be in there all day every day. This is one of my very few political posters. Goodness, I don't know who consumes more Chinese bologna, the Biden administration or my family through social media. So this is a life illustration for Deviled Ham, that's been converted. Tricky part is putting into texture the dark spaces. Just charcoal black doesn't work, especially for printing. You need to have some sort of texture, some sort of lightness in an all black. Otherwise all black really goes toward being a photograph, and then you'll have to print it out on glossy paper. It goes away from being poster art. It goes to being photography with more black. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of lithium. As I said, this is the Esmeralda County. Well, it's my unofficial slogan for the county. And this is a old Soviet Union political poster, but I just simply inverted it, added the lettering, adjusted the color a bit, but it does look like people off to a salt mine. And with lithium, it's more like a brine mine. You take the soil of the Great Basin and put water in it, make it into a brine, extract the minerals from there in a place that doesn't look like a mine at all. It looks like a factory. You'll see steam coming out of the main vent at Silver Peak. You can always have the Dinky Diner in Goldfield, Nevada, whereas you might never have Paris in the Rain. How true. Paris in the Rain, somebody that you love under that umbrella, very difficult, especially to have that sick looking, very cool looking Pontiac. But you can't have the Dinky Diner. This, of course, the car was added, the parking lot added, the building in the back, and that's the hotel, which actually isn't in that position, but the diner has kind of a poor looking location, so we could fix that up. The map in the background is an old town map of Goldfield. The large one, probably 24 by 32, is in the Dinky Diner if you want to go in and see it. The Burgers of Calais. I'm sorry if I can't pronounce this. This is Rodin, of course. I don't know how to pronounce French correctly, but these are the 6 or 7 guys that sacrificed themselves. Their town was under siege. The whole town was going to be completely wrecked and ravished and destroyed and looted. Townspeople killed. These 6 or 7 volunteered to sacrifice themselves to be killed themselves if the town were spared. And that is what happened. These are these people at the moment they realize that they're off to their deaths. A sight for sore eyes. Goldfield, Nevada. Here we have Alfred E. Newman, and also Flash, which is the resident plywood donkey or burro. Another parody. This is copyright. I'm not sure I should talk about this, but Mad Magazine is famous for, well, if you do an original work, you can mock social commentary, do anything you want on any public figure. That's what editorial cartoons do every single day. Recognizable people. Mad Magazine would, and they're still in business, would parody things like Star Wars just by changing the Z and changing the war S, making it into a Z. Great beauty suggests the invisible presence of the gods. This is Giselle, Italian edition of Vogue after she broke up with Tom Brady, and I had heard that she had appeared in this issue. I just didn't know that they devoted probably 12 full pages to her in different outfits. It was just a remarkable issue. Every one of those 10 or 12 pages had her in a different costume with a different look, and just still an incredible top model great beauty suggests the invisible presence of the God. This is the only thing I've done on my condition. It looks like I don't have the lettering here. Interesting. More about nightlife in Goldfield, but that's the way it's been for all the cities I've gone to. Just 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. In the darkest hours of the soul, it is always 2 o'clock in the morning, or 3, according to Eliot. He's very true. Got the cat, the sleeping medicine that doesn't work, the clock that never moves any faster, the nightmares that are always coming and always reappearing. Flowers at Rayleigh's Supermarket, Tonopah, Nevada. This is through a program called Adobe Express. You can get the app for your iPad. It's interesting how this application, it's incredibly crazy good on the iPad. The version of it, Photoshop Express for the iPhone, is much more limited. The version for doing collages on the desktop using Photoshop Express is almost crippleware. It's just practically no good. I don't understand the variations between the platforms, but this is an easy peasy with Photoshop Express. Just using flowers that you walk into and find at almost any grocery store. Elysium Fields Tobacco, More Than a Pipe Dream. I caught JCF smoking some catnip, and I asked him where he got it from, and apparently he had been on the sly fronting or promoting Elysium Fields Tobacco in Goldfield on his own without any authorization. This is him generated by AI. I fed or gave the service 20 photographs of Fremont, and they turned around and gave me 50 different variations. This is one of them. The clip art is mine of the woman with the pipe, and colorized that. Got the correct font, but and the lettering and the writing is correct for Elysium Fields, but we are very disappointed in JCF. He is on the pipe. As he says, on the pipe, off the pipe. It's all about the pipe. Operation Doomtown. This is carried out in the early 1950s at the nearby Nevada test site, where they, for a long time, did above-ground nuclear testing. This is a truly crazy operation in the 1950s. They did a bunch of tests on what would happen to buildings if they exposed them to a nuclear blast. Well, I think we could tell them. One of the things that I don't see here is in the original poster I have, the Nevada test site does not want you. It is closed. Believe me, it is closed. This is Area 51 is in there. That's about 35 miles from Goldfield, but there are a lot of people that do work out on the test site. They're bussed in usually, and it's secure. They'll find you at the fence if you get even close. This is Kokomi. She's a flautist, a young woman, classical flute artist, and also fashion model, as you can see here, although I don't think she's quite tall enough for high fashion. But this would be my reimagining of a Vogue cover, magazine cover. Ovals aren't done much. I really like them, but you don't see them anymore. So this is how there is some writing that's sideways, so but that's artistic expression. This was a Moschino ad, perhaps an L. I doubt it was in Vogue. Note, these are two different positions for the model. It was a 2-page spread. You can see the model that I did a find edges filter on in the background has her arm more akimbo. So I kept the original, I highlighted the edges on the original, which you can see on the left, and then totally did a find edges for the second image, and then did this sort of double exposure when in fact they are two different shots. This is at the International Car Forest of the Last Church in Goldfield, Nevada. It's a thing. Lots of cars buried into the soil of the Great Basin. This profile is of Richard. He is the wife of Astrid. They own Enigmata Esoterica, of which I've done a poster for them. This is his silhouette. I'm not sure the story behind it, and I'm not showing the original photograph, but basically completely in black and white and some mix of colors on the graffiti. This is a very poor, I took a photograph. All of the images you're now seeing are not from the original digital files. They are photographs taken of printouts. That's what I have here at the time. The color correction here is very poor, very blotchy. This was difficult because of the perspective. I couldn't figure out what I was doing incorrectly. Very difficult. Of course, the car, the multiple exposures of the same car. The car in the background has to be in proportion to the cars in front. The cars in front have a wider look. It's a perspective challenge, and I'm not sure that I really got it. This is a portal looking window at the Administration Center on Treasure Island in San Francisco Bay. The administration building was owned by the Navy. It's now in private hands. This Treasure Island is turned into some sort of high-tech center and low-cost housing project. Anyway, this club apparently opens on the weekend, and you can see on the left is the original photograph and how easily this was put in with several different filters and framed. Devised this, it looks like a frame, but devised it digitally and to make it more painterly looking. From Jubilate Agno. This is a very large poster. Gentleman named Scott. I'm not sure if I can read this. Yeah, I have to look up his name. Even with my reading glasses, I'm not sure I can read this on the screen. But the best cat poem ever written. If you have a chance to look it up, this is just a segment from a much, much longer epic poem that Scott did hundreds of years ago, and still the best. I should have mentioned that the cats that you saw on the left were AI generated. From a previous discussion, I mentioned the cat gallery in Chicago. Those were variations, AI variations of our leader, John Charles Fremont the Explorer, seen here in fully AI. That is artificially intelligence generated in the background. Now I put Elysium Fields, that's correct. I had a Chinese gentleman, produce that. And this is the story goes that I found him smoking catnip, and then later found out he was being sponsored by Elysium Fields, and they're up to no good. The lady there with the hookah with the pipe is like a 1920s photograph that I colorized. This is probably from the French edition, 1 month. Interesting how they have some really, a women's magazine, obviously, a women's magazine, and yet the pictures inside, especially for this photo shoot, were far more. I think women would say in the United States, if they were looking at Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, they would say they were exploitive, much more quote unquote exploitive than SI. But obviously, the French don't have a problem with beautiful women and maybe women as art, because the layout is very, I shall say, explicit but beautiful. Maybe we just can't tolerate that here in the States. But, and speaking of France, this is one of a number of things. I paint by the numbers. If you see this in person, this is a really popular piece where I took a standard paint by the numbers illustration and then just blended in color from all over, disregarding the lines. I have something of my self-portrait in the easel on the right, and Bianca Salming is on the left of my portrait. She's a Swedish athlete. I'm kind of stalking from a distance. We used to call it a secret admirer. I guess that term is no longer in currency, but yeah, this is very well received. Here's a look at some of the landscape orientation images that I've done. This is a cute couple. They actually fell off this boat for me, but I was unable to capture that moment. This is off of Waikiki. The front edge of that surfboard actually was missing. I used AI to put the, I would say 20% of the board. AI created the tip of that board. Very complex to do by hand, that hemispherical shape. Experimenting with some textures. This really isn't, this is a design that hasn't gone to completion. Just the white foam is blown out. There's no real texture in it. Very hard to get that correct. Here is a find edges filter, and then I laid in with the original photograph. A room with a view. This is from the Hyatt Regency Waikiki Beach Resort, 19th floor. Took the original photograph and then cut in the green belt essentially. That's kind of a nice contrast. This is just done at the airport, a mix of the new plane and the old, it was a black and white photograph of the old field. And this is something I did at the Hilton in Davis. It kind of looks like an architectural rendering. They were pleased to get it. I gave them a frame 16 by 20 of this. And there's another place in Davis, the Varsity Theater. I did one quick doodle, Davis, California, all the hallmarks of a dangerously innocent culture. And yeah, it needs something up in the upper left, maybe a happy moon or some such. And so this image is incomplete. I have a much more finished one in the gallery. This is my rejection of the TED Talks, which are now just a book selling tour. They go into such obscure subjects, so
This is a new TED Talk to focus on the triumph of American barnyard discipline and the failure of Soviet collectivization to achieve the same. This is a number of things I did, kind of envisioning heaven's waiting room where you're hoping for admittance. You can see Biden there in the center, just still watching over your life, trying to control you. This is Claudia Schiffer, still modeling well into her 40s. Good for her, one of the most beautiful women who have ever lived. This is a well received montage, possibly the most complex photo montage I've done. Notable is my cat with his 1,000-mile stare in the driver's seat, and there's an image of a woman off of an old Cars record album. Some clip art, the American flag woven into everything. This took some time. This is a Kylie Jenner comparison between the pink of the 50s, or perhaps today because it's going to soft pastels today, and the hot pink of the 80s. And this is the Fouts house. This is one variation. I like the one with my tarot card border better. This was an earlier attempt. This is Jerry Fouts. This is my first private commission, and this was a photograph and then posterized. There's a woman in the clouds. There's a lot of details here. It's about 2.5 days to get this. Mount Columbia wasn't scaled until the mid 60s because of Yeti. A lot of abominable snowman there. Goldfield Yeti. They have an attitude. Apparently the first time it was climbed was in the mid 60s. A group of hippies under acid. Somehow they were able to climb up Columbia and communicate with them under the influence. And what else? Oh, this is a hood of a car at the International Car Force, the last church, Goldfield, Nevada. I recently sold a 8x10 of this, and then Goldfield and Anime and Magma. I still can't. Magna. I still don't get it, and these young girls are questioning Goldfield as well as I question this whole art form. What's seen next here is a poster I did for the Johnstons in Pahrump. It was originally intended to highlight their RV, but it turned out to be a memory board. In the driver's and the passenger side window, I have a reflection of their dog that used to ride up in that position. Now he's gone. His name was Buddy, but he's now in their vehicle forever. This is a very complex montage. You'd have to really look at it in person. Each of these people are having personal problems. Nothing to wear in white. In Rhodesia, another woman is missing her Peloton. Another person suffering from ennui and malaise. Another one of Alicia Newman. Really need the original to show you what's going on with this. I think this was a fine edge filter and then inverted the image. But these are just some of the ones that I have done in landscape rather than portrait. Well, this one deserves a lot more attention perhaps than I can give it here in a minute. It started out as a low res screen grab. You can see in the lower left Bardot holding a puppy. She's always been a great animal welfare activist, and this was converted this to color. Very, very difficult to get her skin tone down and the blonde hair. And the background is actually a building in San Diego I took some photographs of for a shoot I was doing for In Focus, my old employer. and then the whole thing colorized up and gone crazy. This was fairly unretouched photograph in a fashion magazine, and it's just her against a wall. I know they're trying to set this tough girl attitude, but I thought I could make it into something more interesting. This is the Japanese flag, portions of it in the rising sun motif in the background. A lot of black, red. That's a dependable combination. I'm not even sure if she is Japanese. Don't want to guess at that, but still, I think it works. Operation Doomtown, early 1950s. For some reason, this is very near Goldfield, Nevada, where I lived. Early 50s, they were experimenting with nuclear weapons, above ground testing, set up an entire house to see what a nuclear bomb would do to a house. And yeah, you can guess what happened. But this is really an incomplete version. I'm not sure where the original is, where I have the Nevada test site does not welcome you at the bottom, and there's a red border. This one's not showing it, so this is an incomplete version. And it's big so that you can read all of the text. Can't do that here. This is the one poster I did on my condition. Um, there's John Charles Fremont in the right hand corner. But I don't want people to feel sorry for me, but this is just, you know, even here in Waikiki, this hotel has 1,100 rooms, thousands of employees, thousands of guests. I'm the only one, literally the only person walking around at 2:30 in the morning, 3, 4 o'clock. I am it with me, just me and my nightmares, and so it goes. Here's J Law, another color photograph trying to put into a sketch type effect. I don't use actions, which you may have heard of. Actions are little tiny programs that you can buy to do different things. What they do is a little program that runs in Photoshop that may do 15, 20 operations, enlarge, reduce, focus, filters, blah 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 blah. This isn't doing that. To get the sketch effect, I'm using HDR toning, which is not an action, and then the color half toning is another filter. But when you're not using actions, you're not going to look like everybody else. You're going to have your own look. This is Ron Matheny of Diamondfield Gulch, which is about 9 miles outside of Goldfield, Nevada. Diamondfield Gulch was a real small mining town. He has an event center out there. He's an amazing guy, very conversational, heavy equipment operator, in great demand all over the area for his expertise with heavy equipment. The event center is rented out. It's amazing. This is the unretouched photograph here, and you'll see what I did with it. I got him into. He wasn't smiling, but I got him into that doorway to at least frame him and his shot. He later said that he looks like a homeless person, but he smiles when he says that, because his kids apparently really like the poster. And here he is. You'll note that he's smiling here. That's courtesy of Photoshop's neural filters. If you're very careful, you can tweak something of a presentable smile, but you have to be really careful. They're so good you can even get Megan Fox to smile a bit. You can't stop her from drinking blood, but you can possibly tweak out a little smile, although on her it looks unnatural and weird. This is another very poorly rendered. Again, what you're seeing here are photographs of prints. They're not the original digital files. So the loss of resolution, color, everything is just gone. But I just don't have time to put together. I don't have time to find all these files and put them into a video format like this. But this is at the A&W in Tonopah. Yeah, getting permission to take a photograph from the front these days is very, very, well, difficult, and you're going to look like a creep. So I guess it's better just to be a creep from the other way around. Here's more myth building for John Charles Fremont the Explorer, likening him to Steven Seagal, who we really don't know where he got his training. He just sort of appeared on the scene, sort of like JCF. And this is a old karate or kung fu magazine, and then this photo montage of him, about how everybody owes JCF a debt of gratitude for his martial arts skills and influence, far more than Bruce Lee. This poster simply acknowledges that debt. And this one is super complicated as far as the subject matter goes. Chandra Bose, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. He was the strong man of India compared to Gandhi. Gandhi, well, big subject, but Chandra, he was going to wrest power away from the British. He was not going to wait until they got around to granting freedom for India. He was going to take it. And it's only, because of the British eventually being civilized people that they let it go. This peaceful, non-violent stuff was just, it's only allowable, it's only possible when there's a government that you're dealing with that is willing to talk, even with Mountbatten's mistakes and cruelty at times. The British government was a civilized government. This is about the hypnotizing power of cigarettes and advertising. This is an advertisement from Life magazine. All of the people, this is a multiple exposure, of course, but there are probably 15 or 20 individual celebrities and other personalities all endorsing Camel cigarettes, and just spiraling into addiction. And of course, not as much was known then, but my ode to Colonel Sanders. Yeah, chicken. Got chicken if you want it. Did I say chicken? What part of chicken do you not understand? If you want chicken, you talk to me. got chicken. Chicken all day, chicken all night. It's all about the chicken. Did you know that I am a Kentucky Colonel? All of us colonels, like our chicken, gonna form a goddamn army full of chicken eaters. You'll see. I was thinking about chicken the other day, and I got this thing about chicken. Anyway, it goes on and on. And this is about the decision-making process, about if you're considering buying a Thomas Farley original design. So you have a lot of chicken, yeah, a lot of choices. None of them here about chicken. You can go back to the previous one. Basically, no matter how you work this, you're going to wind up, whether you can afford it or not. So even if you're making payments on a second girlfriend or a card that doesn't actually run, this chart will point you to the way that buying a Thomas Farley original is the best choice each and every time. Art rules and bill collectors drool. This is a lot more green than the original, although I like the top dark green band and the lower green, darker green band here more than the original. This was from some Italian fashion magazine, and it's part of what you can't see, which was to print out a print on, put it in a frame without glass or an acrylic shield. So you have a fairly nice wood frame, but this would just be heavy bond paper, and this came out really well. This work isn't my own. It was in a old Nevada Highways magazine, uncredited author. I have a lot more about this at my website, thomasfarleyblog.com, and my Adobe portfolio site, which I'll link somewhere. This was rescuing these wonderful images, scanning them, and then putting them online for anybody to use. This is the low-rise Las Vegas Strip before everything went totally crazy. Again, just very pure line art, a lot of Zipatone, which was used for shading. One artist thinks that a lot of it was done actually in pointillism style, but I'm not buying it. This was round about Easter. I did 2 posters celebrating Rio or Carnival, and this image was another stock photo taken from depositphotos.com, but then it was natural skin tone, natural color, very confused street background, and I eliminated the street background, added the lettering, the oval, the curve of the oval, cropped it, just substantive change, that's for sure. This is probably 18 by 24. This was a design that I might have done for a record album. The record is called I Like Them Girls. That's it. That's all the words in the song. It's sort of an electronic dance music anthem done by Black V-Neck, and just this Tatler, the Russian edition, with that woman on the cover, and this spiral that looks like a clef note is one of the few things I've done in with curves. This is done in Freeform, which is Apple's new drawing tool. This is my sort of tribute to Waco. It's just a tragedy. I don't expect rationality of anyone like him, or any religious zealot, but I do expect rationality from the United States government when it has a gun in its hand and the power to arrest you and even kill you if necessary. I expect total rationality from a weaponized government, and there was none there at Waco. Not during the process, not the cover-up was bungled, total mess. And here's Famke Johansson. She was a Bond girl in one of the movies, and this was a Gentleman's Quarterly magazine. I'm showing the illustration for Funny Girl because what you'll see is how the next slide is how I would have, one possibility is how I would present this poster. Instead of her complete image, I would have, and I couldn't even remember what I was channeling, but it must have been the Funny Girl poster. And you'll see how I would have treated the opening of this article otherwise. Just Famke very much. I think this works, but these major design houses aren't going to hire me, that's for sure. And I just started graphic design about 2 years ago, but there was never a chance of anything, of ever going into this when I was younger. I have a severe learning disability, so I can't even pass algebra, so I went to work with my hands. And all of this design equipment would have been in the province of workstations and other equipment only available at universities or very expensive trade schools. So that was never going to happen. They would have never let somebody do layout for Vogue or Elle without a degree and without heavy industry training. The International Car Forest of the Last Church, and Han Solo's strange explanation. They asked him about whether the Force was real, and he replied instead he must have been really tired or drunk about how he didn't think the International Car Forest of the Last Church was real either until he saw it, and then he saw the tiny town of Goldfield and cars planted in the desert, and he tells the questioner, who remains confused to this day, about how it's true. It's all of it. Cars in the desert. It's all true. Second poster for Enigmata Esoterica. The first didn't have this title bar at the bottom, and that figure is from a famous painting. I can't recall the artist. I think one of those Dutch masters of, I think it's called The Ambassadors. There's two of those guys, and one of them now is in the title bar. I will look up a little more detail added this time, although I did lose some of the desirable color in the foreground. That sparkly blue I was going for is a little reduced in this version. And Goldfield, Nevada. Many things to many people. Perhaps too many. I think I never printed this out in poster form. Anything bigger than 8 by 12. It has so many elements going on. I think it may work a little bit, but it doesn't work that well. I do like the rabbit. And the woman in the upper right, I'm not sure about. Middle center would be Bianca Salming. Others I lose track of. And this one here is Bauhaus style. Bauhaus. This is much nicer in person. This is a really nice warm set of colors. Kate Moss, Life as Art. I've also done a conceptual video with this where today, if you're on Etsy or some other seller, you can have your artwork displayed on these virtual walls in these virtual buildings. So I have this video that's kind of neat about going from one room to another in these buildings that don't exist, and on every wall there's a poster of her in that bathtub. I think she's reading a book on how to help your man succeed. But of course, what else would she be reading? And we have here not an art exhibition, but an Art T. Johnson exhibition. If you remember Lapin, which I'm sure you don't, Artie Johnson was a, let's see, what rank was he? Perhaps a colonel. He would dress up in a Nazi uniform, and if somebody said something silly, he would come out, and his tagline was very interesting. So you can see here, this is a template done in Adobe Express, where I originally printed it out, and I had forgotten about his tagline. So that, of course, makes the poster to people that recognize it or remember it. Very interesting. At Goldfield. This is sort of a one-off, not much to report. It's a magazine cover. People freak out about this. Chicks with guns is a thing. That's true, but this is actually paintball guns. I had a couple of posters like this, but I kept them in the back room because people are ignorant and they see what they want to see, and they will make no effort to distinguish good from the bad as long as they can be frightened. They don't explore their fears, they just buy into what the media says. So it's sad, but people are generally stupid and ignorant and don't want to learn more. They're just paintball guns. And this is about the featureless maps that the United States Geological Survey are producing now. They're no good for anybody except land planners. They're not any good for anybody trying to navigate across the ground. Absolutely impossible these days. They've stopped sending their own people out in the field due to cost cutting, I think, years ago, 15, 20 years ago, and ever since then, all the windmills and water tanks and old schoolyards have been obliterated. They're just literally blank, and I give examples about how all of our history disappeared when they made this new map of Tonopah. And yet those maps were the most popular thing that they did, and they just destroyed it. Continue to destroy them. Secret British artist colony revealed, and this is about Tristan at Goldfield in the middle of the Atlantic, where you get sent if you criticize the Queen. They're forced to work on artistic endeavors like painting her corgis or racehorses, but with very limited tools. Not enough paint, never enough paint, not enough canvas. But it's another one of these things that meant to be read, and I think the big size is what makes it go. And so many posters, so many advertisements have nothing to read. Whereas if you look at the magazine ads of the 60s, it's quite often half text and half illustration or half photograph. People actually wanted to read new and different things, and now we just need high impact, or the advertisers think that's what we want, and of course based on test results they're probably right. It's the dumbing down of America. This is Alicia Newman in a posed shot, and I don't know exactly why I have this here, because I don't have the I have this is the before. I have the after shot on another video, so maybe the two will get together at some time. This is an illustration from Life no, actually it could be Life or Playboy Beef Eater Gin, and I think I used the Find Edges feature here, and a lot of playing around with the saturation. And this was also, I put in you can see the pink border in there, the half border. Sometimes it's partial border. You don't have to frame something completely, and you need to know when an image should go outside the frame.